and welcome to Jen Does Yoga. This video is the second of an 8-week beginner yoga series. If you haven't seen week 1, head on over to my YouTube channel and check it out. Today's class will focus on sun salutations A and B. So what are sun salutations? They're like the burpees of yoga. Excellent as a warm-up, and they can be a standalone practice on their own for those days when you only have 15 minutes to practice, but you want to raise your heart rate and work on increasing strength and stamina. Let's begin standing at the top of our mat in mountain pose. We don't need much of a warm-up for sun salutations as they usually serve as warm-ups themselves. Let's just take a few breaths here to clear the mind and get ready for our practice. Taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out. One more time. Big deep breath in. Hold it for 5 seconds. And a deep breath out. Raising the arms up overhead on an inhale. And as we exhale, we're going to swan dive with a flat back into a forward fold. If you're having trouble touching the floor, don't worry. Bend your knees. It's more important to get your palms planted than it is for your knees to stay straight. On an inhale, we're going to lift into a halfway lift and then back down into a forward fold on the exhale. Taking a step back, come to your knees into a kneeling plank. Wrists right under your shoulders and slowly lower down to your belly. Pressing the tops of the feet into the mat, lift your chest for cobra pose. You want to adjust your hands so they're back towards your rib cage and not directly in front of your shoulders here. Look up, and then on the exhale, lower back down to your stomach. Coming back up into tabletop, tucking the toes behind you, and pushing back up into downward facing dog. This is your first downward facing dog of the practice, so feel free to bend your knees and walk your feet out. You might want to sway your hips side to side too if that feels good. Again, here in downward facing dog, it's okay if your heels don't touch the mat. Just bend your knees and focus on the upper part of your body, making sure that your biceps are framing your ears, spine is long, and your tailbone is flared up. Let's walk to the top of our mat, and again, forward fold. Palms towards the mat, knees can be bent. Inhale for a halfway lift, and exhale back down to forward fold. Slowly reverse swan dive all the way up, arms up overhead, palms touch if you can, and back down into mountain pose. That's sun salutation A. Let's try that again. Inhale, arms come all the way up, look up at the thumbs, and exhale, swan dive down, flat back, forward fold. Inhale for a halfway lift. Hands can come to the shins, but we want to keep our back flat and our chest forward. Back down, exhale to a forward fold, palms to the mat. Stepping back into our kneeling plank. Watch that your shoulders and wrists are in one line. Lower all the way down. Pressing the tops of the feet into the mat. Lift the chest for cobra pose. Gaze is up, shoulders down. And exhale, lower back down to the mat. Coming back into our tabletop, tuck your toes and push back into downward facing dog. Again, okay if you bend the knees. Focus on lengthening the spine and framing the ears with the biceps. Take a few breaths here. Deep inhale and deep exhale out. Walking our feet to the top of the mat and forward fold again. Go ahead and bend the knees. Inhale for a halfway lift, maybe the knees straighten a little more here, and back down to forward fold. Slowly reverse swan dive all the way up, looking up at the thumbs, and arms back down to the side for mountain pose. Let's do this one more time. On an inhale, bring the arms up overhead, gazing up at the thumbs. Exhale, fold all the way down. You might want to try and straighten your legs a little more this time now that you've done a few of these. Inhale for a halfway lift, and exhale, fold. Stepping back again into our kneeling plank. Shoulders over wrists, gaze forward, chest up, and lower all the way down to the floor. Pressing the tops of the feet into the mat, engaging the legs, pushing up into cobra. And lowering back down, exhale. Coming back into our tabletop, tuck the toes, and back to downward facing dog. Again, bending the knees if you need to, but don't be afraid to try and straighten them out either. Nice deep inhale here, and exhale out, clearing the mind, focusing on the breath. One more inhale, and exhale as we walk our feet to the top of the mat. Bending the knees into forward fold. Inhale for a halfway lift, and exhale, fold one more time, nice and deep. And then on an inhale, reverse swan dive all the way back up, arms overhead, look at the thumbs, and back down to mountain pose. Great job. Great, so if that first sun salutation felt a little easy for you, let's try to up the ante a little bit and make this a little more challenging. So again, inhale, arms up overhead. Exhale, swan dive all the way down. This time really trying to keep those legs straight, but still aiming for the mat. Inhale for a halfway lift. Try keeping your fingertips on the mat. Exhale, forward fold. Stepping back into a high plank this time. Again, aligning the shoulders over the wrists, lowering all the way down to the mat. Inhale, up for upward facing dog. Legs are activated here, hips and thighs off the mat. Pushing back into downward facing dog on our exhale. Pedaling the feet again if you need to. A few deep breaths here. Nice deep inhale. And exhale, let all the air out. Walk your feet back to your hands. And exhale, forward fold. On an inhale, we're going to come all the way back up, arms overhead, gaze at the thumbs, and hands back to the sides. Let's do this a few more times. Inhale, arms up overhead. And exhale, swan dive all the way down, forward fold. Inhale for a halfway lift, head up, chest up, and exhale, forward fold. All the way back to high plank, and lowering down. Inhale for upward facing dog, hips and thighs lift, tops of the feet press into the mat, and pushing directly up into our downward facing dog. Couple deep breaths here. Deep inhale, and a deep exhale. Focusing on your tailbone, making sure that it's flared out, and that your ears are framed by your biceps. Nice long spine here. Take another inhale and exhale out. Walk your feet towards the top of your mat. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, reverse swan dive all the way back up, arms overhead, gaze at the thumbs, and back into mountain pose. One more time for sun salutation A. Inhale, arms up overhead, looking at the thumbs, head drops back if that's comfortable for you. Exhale, forward fold. Palms on the mat if you can. Inhale, halfway lift, chest up. Exhale, fold. Back into high plank. Shifting forward, lowering all the way down. Tops of the feet pressing into the mat. Hips and thighs come up on the inhale for upward facing dog. Exhale directly back into downward facing dog. Deep breath in and a deep breath out. Another deep inhale in and exhale out. Looking forward, walking your feet to the top of the mat. Exhale, fold deeply. Inhale, sweep arms up overhead, palms together, look at the thumbs, and exhale back to mountain pose. All right, so now that we've done sun salutation A, let's try sun salutation B. We'll start by moving into chair pose on an inhale, gazing up at the thumbs. Exhale, forward fold. It's okay to keep your knees bent here. Inhale for a halfway lift, flat back, chest up, and exhale, fold. Stepping back into a kneeling plank, shoulders over wrists, slowly lower down on the exhale. On an inhale, bring it back up into a cobra pose. Lower back down on the exhale and come to tabletop. Tuck your toes and push back into downward facing dog. It's okay to keep your knees bent here. Step your right leg forward for warrior one. Knees over ankles, gaze up at the thumbs. And exhale back down into a kneeling plank, shoulders over wrists, and slowly lower down to your belly. Inhale for cobra pose, chest up, head up. Exhale, back down to your belly. Coming back into tabletop and pushing back into downward facing dog. Step forward with the left foot this time for warrior one on the left side. Again, knees above the ankles, reaching arms all the way up, pressing the palms if you can, gazing at the thumbs. Exhale, back down to kneeling plank. Head up, chest up, slowly lower down to your belly. Inhale for cobra, press the tops of the feet into the mat, hips into the mat as well. Exhale and lower back down. On the inhale, come back into tabletop, tuck your toes, and pushing back up into downward facing dog. Let's take a few breaths here. Deep inhale and a deep exhale. Again, it's okay to keep your knees bent here if you need to. Focus on lengthening the spine, flaring the tailbone, and ensuring that your ears are framed by the biceps. Let's walk it forward, feet to the top of the mat, and forward fold. Inhale and come back up into chair to finish off sun salutation B and standing back up into mountain pose. Let's try that again. Inhale, arms come up into chair pose, hips sink back. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale for a halfway lift and exhale, fold. Stepping back into a kneeling plank. Slowly lower down to your belly and inhale for cobra pose. Exhale back down to the belly and come up into tabletop. Tuck the toes, downward facing dog. Right foot steps forward for warrior one. Knees over ankles, hips squared to the front, arms come up, gaze at the thumbs, and exhale back down into a kneeling plank. Slowly lower down. Press the tops of the feet into the mat, hips stay on the mat, up for cobra pose. Slowly lower back down to the belly. Back into tabletop, tuck your toes, downward facing dog. Stepping forward with the left foot this time for warrior one on the left side. Hips squared to the front, knees over ankles, gazing up at the thumbs. Back down into a high plank. Slowly lower down to your belly. Press the tops of the feet into the mat and up for cobra. Slowly lower back down, pushing back into tabletop, and then finally back into downward facing dog. Lengthen the spine, frame the ears with the biceps, flare the tailbone up, and breathe. Focusing on the breath, maybe trying to straighten your legs a little bit more this time. Deep inhale in, and a deep exhale. Walk your feet to the top of the mat, forward fold. Inhale, look up, sink your hips back, chair pose. And finally exhale, mountain pose. All right, if that felt easy for you, let's try Sun Salutation B a little more challenging. Inhale, sinking back into chair, looking up at the thumbs. Exhale, forward fold. Try to straighten your legs this time. Inhale for a halfway lift, flat back, chest up. And exhale, step back into a high plank. Shift your weight forward and lower down to your belly. Pressing the tops of the feet into the mat, up dog, lifting the hips. Pushing back down into downward facing dog. Step the right foot forward for warrior one. Arms come up, hips square to the front, gaze at the thumbs. Exhale, back down to high plank, shift your weight forward and lower down to chaturanga. Pressing the tops of the feet into the mat, lift the thighs, lift the hips for up dog, pushing right back into downward facing dog. Stepping forward with the left foot, warrior one. Squaring the hips forward, arms come up, gaze at the thumbs. Hands back down, high plank. Shift your weight forward, lower down to chaturanga. Pushing up into upward facing dog, lift the hips, lift the thighs, and then directly into downward facing dog. Take a couple breaths here. Deep inhale and a deep exhale. Sun Salutation B can be a little more challenging, so we want to take our time in this last downward facing dog to really focus on our breath. Try to straighten your legs if you can. Look forward, walk your feet to the top of the mat. Forward fold. Inhale, chest comes up, hips sink back, chair pose. And finally straighten your legs for mountain. All right, let's try this one more time. Inhale, sink your hips back, arms come up for chair pose. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale for a halfway lift, chest up, and exhale, fold back down into high plank. Shift your weight forward, lower back down to your belly. Upward facing dog, hips and thighs off the mat, pushing back down into downward facing dog. Step the right foot forward for warrior one. Arms come up overhead, gaze at the thumbs. Back down into high plank. Shift the weight forward, drop down to the belly. Upward facing dog, hips and thighs off the mat, directly into downward facing dog. Step the left foot forward, warrior one. Square the hips forward, arms come up, look up, and back down into high plank. Shift the weight forward, lower into chaturanga, all the way down to the mat, pressing the feet into the tops of the feet into the mat, up dog and down dog. Good. Take a few breaths here. Again, lengthening the spine, making sure that your tailbone is flared, and trying to reach your heels to the mat at this point. But it's okay if you can't still. It's okay to still keep your knees bent. Walk your feet to the top of the mat and forward fold. Inhale, look up, chest up, sink your hips back, up for chair pose, and standing tall for mountain pose. And that concludes our Sun Salutation practice. Moving into our cool down, let's take a seat on the mat. Come all the way to your back, legs long. Get comfortable. Let's bring the left leg in, holding at the top of your hamstring, trying to pull your left knee towards your left armpit. Take a few deep breaths here. Really let your body be heavy into the mat. Keeping that right leg engaged though. Inhale. And exhale, release the left leg. Bringing the right leg in, grabbing on the top of your hamstring, pulling your right knee towards your right armpit, keeping your left leg active on the floor. Deep inhale in, and exhale, release the leg. Bringing both legs in this time, holding both legs behind the knees, just on top of the hamstring, not directly behind the knee joint. Pulling in, letting your lower back release into the mat. Deep breath in, and a deep breath out. Lay your arms to the sides and let your knees fall to the left side while you look over your right shoulder. Take a few breaths here. Inhale in and exhale out. Bring your knees back to center, and this time let them fall to the right side while you look over your left shoulder. A few more breaths here. Deep inhale in and a deep exhale out. Bringing your knees back to center, give your legs one last hug in and release everything. Let your legs lay long, let your arms fall out to the side. Get all the jitters out and just breathe. Use this time to let your body synthesize all of the work that it just did. Deep inhale in and deep exhale out. Relax your face, relax your forehead, unclench your jaw, relax your shoulders, your torso, your arms, your hips, your legs, and your feet, and just breathe. Thank you so much for sharing your practice today. Let's move back into a seated position. Namaste.